about all of that, and eventually you think, well, I mean, I have the money, so I'll order food. Or I've got the time, I've got a car, and it's like 10 minutes to 10. And so I can speed up to Aldi, Asda, get everything I need. Things like that that make you think. And these are, I don't know, does anyone want to indulge me? What are the skills in these examples that I've given? Okay. Does anyone have any? Exactly. Decision making, problem solving. Exactly. So all of these things are skills that are transferable from one thing to the other. And yes, these are basic examples, but they're everything you would need to go from just to live life, to be very honest, to be a student, to be a part of the student teams, student clubs, to work with people, to deliver your school projects, to eventually applying for jobs, having going for interviews, relating with your colleagues, all of these skills, and being able to, develop on these skills. These are examples of, at the very basic level, transferable skills. So, thank you for that. We will be going to the next section where I will invite two professionals to give an insight. So I'll start with Mrs. Faye.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So I'm going to be going into a bit about myself first and how I've sort of ended up where I've ended, and then talking through some key skills that I think you really need to excel in this role. I did introduce myself earlier, but for those that weren't present, my name's Faye, Faye Alegbade. Full name Faye Shayo, but everyone calls me Faye. I'm a senior project consultant, senior managing consultant. So I specialize in project, program, and portfolio planning and management. I literally eat and breathe project management, and I say that because my best friend's here to testify that I think I apply every aspect of my job in my day-to-day life. And the reason I say that is you come to realize that naturally you are led by your sort of character and your personality in choosing your career path. And I mentioned on my transferable skills, I mentioned confidence. Growing up, I've always been, growing up in Preston, I've moved back to Preston and everything seems to change. When I was growing up, I was the only black girl in school. So I had to have confidence because I had to answer all the awkward questions that anyone would have about being black. So imagine school kids, the kind of questions they'll have for you. So I think that really, and that's, a not so positive example that's actually helped develop me in the long run. Like, as I mentioned earlier, I have no obligation to sit with anyone regardless of hierarchy. I can sit with Rishi Sunak and tell him he needs to taste jollof rice. I can convince him to taste jollof rice, So a bit about my background, my educational background. I have a degree, a bachelor's in business management, and I remember when I wanted to do my master's, I was in a bit of a limbo because I was like, do I continue with business management as a master's? And I thought to myself, to be quite honest, I'm not a business management person. I knew there was something missing. I love management, but I knew I didn't want to go down the business management route. And I've also done operational management roles, so I knew that that's not really what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that drive was there. So I recall I spoke to Lancaster University, and as I was about to apply for business management, the lady was like, there's other management courses. I was like, God answers. And then she gave me a list of management courses to read over, which they don't normally do that. You just be like, you want to do your course, this is it. And it's like, oh my God, God heard. So I recall she sent me a list of different management courses, and I saw project management. That was the first time I'd come across project management. And I read about it, and I was like, this is what I've been trying to do all my life. And the reason I'll go into that a bit is because, I've got to differentiate between what operations management and project management is. Operations is efficiency. They're about delivering efficiency. We do the same thing repeatedly, but we do it really well. We know what we're doing every time. Whereas a project is a unique endeavor that's got a start and end date. If we've got something that needs to be done, a change needs to happen, we've got to do it, start here, do it then. Sometimes we don't even know how we're going to do it, but we know we have to do it. So I knew that was something I wanted to do. So I did my master's. Till now, the director of the program still always recommends like all the students come and speak to me and stuff like that. So I do a bit of mentoring for uni students. And then in terms of certification, after I finished my master's, I went into Ministry of Defence, straight into it. That was where I did a lot of lessons learned about myself and how I need to develop and sort of speed up my career. So in terms of my background, in terms of certifications, I'm a full member of the Association of Project Management, so I do hold a MAPM title. I have PFQ. I've got quite a few, but I think I've only listed 4. I've got PFQ, which is the foundation qualification for APM, and I also have the practitioner one, which is the PMQ, which is like the full qualification that you need for the APM. So they are like the chart. If you wanted to go down the chartered route, you need to go through APM. So they are like the body of project management for the UK. And then I've got my. They focus very much on waterfall delivery. The APM, which we know that a lot of organizations now, they actually incorporate both waterfall and agile methodologies in delivering projects. So I thought, when I worked with the MOD, when I was still an assistant project manager, and then I got a promotion within a year, I was recommended by the director, and I was thinking, God works in mysterious ways, because I've just been like going with the flow. But so I did my Prince 2 Agile Foundation and Practitioner exam. Gosh, that was hard. If you think the APMQ is hard, the Prince 2 Agile is hard, because it really tests your knowledge, because they'll give you different scenarios, and all 4 are right answers. But to that scenario, you have to pick the answer. So it really tests your application of what you've. So you do need a bit of experience in project management to be able to do it. So if someone's new to project management, I'll tell them to go down the APMQ route first, the APFQ, PMQ route, because the Prince 2 Agile really needs that application of day-to-day, project management. And then I've got a MS project, which is more of a technical software for planning projects. So there's so many of our applications. You've got Jira, you've got Monday.com, I think that's what it's called. So you tend to plan your projects in this, and a lot of companies do want people who have knowledge of how to use this software. So in terms of experiences, I come from a MOD background. I've worked in telecoms. I'm one of those people that, if you look at my CV, it'll probably take about 10 pages, because I've moved around in terms of workplaces. I think my first ever job when I was a 16-year-old was with the NHS, and it was just office admin. And I remember the person that used to support me back then, glory to God, when he checked my LinkedIn profile, he messaged me saying, "How?" I said, "It is God." Because it truly is. And when people really watch your growth and they see where you are, and I mean, I'm the youngest person on our management board in my workplace, and because most people are like in their 50s and their 60s, and you see a younger black lady, and she's like, "We need to do this, we need to make this change, we need to, So that was the drive for me. I'm my own drive in terms of helping people and mentoring people. I help people look at their CVs companies in terms of when they're trying to go into project management and things like that. I've worked in utilities with Thames Water, the famous Thames Water, one of the biggest water organisation in the UK. I worked as a strategic project manager there. I did logistics projects, continuous improvement projects, so helping sort of just cost-saving projects, which can be difficult, and you've got to separate emotions from work, because when you've got to make people redundant to save businesses money, it can be quite hard, and that's where you go to. Imagine speaking to someone and you know you've got to lay them off in like a week's time because you've got to save the business money. These are like where your interpersonal skills really come into play. Like, how do you navigate conversations? How do you discuss really difficult things that's going to affect people in the long run? And where the old heads, as they call them in the workplace, they'll just tell you straight, oh, mate, sorry, gotta let you go. You know, but, you know, so it's about how do you navigate conversations like that, really developing those skills that helps you, you know, have those difficult conversations with people. So I'm just going to go into the next slide, please. Just go into sort of, you know, what project management is, which I've touched upon, what skills you need, how you can sort of go into it. Yeah. So concept of project management, I mentioned it a bit earlier. It's about, you know, a unique endeavor that has a start and end date. And the project manager is accountable. And I think this is the part that a lot of people don't really like to hear. If your project fails, it's on your head. And it's not you that's responsible for delivering the entire thing. You have a whole team. But if it doesn't go well, oh, Faye, we need to have a talk. Someone has not done something, but it's on you. So it's that being able to take accountability for a large piece of work. I mean, when in my junior career, when I had to manage, I was working on a construction project, so as an assistant project manager, and it was worth £1.8 billion. This is a high interest government project. And I was thinking to myself, you know, when you're seeing a currency and you're seeing the amount, you're like, are they sure, like, this money? Where is it, you know? So being part of something so huge can be quite daunting, especially when you're so fresh and new into, you know, the career. So this is where interpersonal skills come into play. I remember when I was working on that project, the director of that project, he had an office. You know, in the UK, when you have an office to yourself, you're of great importance. Everyone works on an open floor, but when you got your own office, he's got his name printed on his door. And we were planning an award ceremony, first of its kind. I proposed, I said, you know, it's a construction project. They all work really hard. Let's do a bit of incentive for them. So I proposed it. So it was on me to even deliver it on top of my day job. And I said something. I used the word cherishable. And this man said to me, Faye, that's not a word. I was like, Stuart, it is, in front of everyone. I said, okay. And he said, it's not. I said, okay, I know it is. I know my English. So what I did was, bearing in mind I was an assistant project manager then, I went on Google, I printed the word cherishable, what it meant, what it stood for, everything, examples. I put it in an envelope, and I went to his, when he was out of his office, I put it on his desk, and I wrote Faye, my full name, Faye Elegbade. I put it on his desk. Do you know the audacity? When he came in the office, he's a military man. He led, like, military people. So he's very stern. Everyone's so, you know, scared of Stuart. And, oh, God bless that man. He shouted, Miss Elegbade, in the office, the whole office thinking, what has happened? He came in. He was like, he sat me down. He said, I'd like you to mentor my daughter. I think it was the audacity for him that a young lady can come, someone that when he's walking past, everyone's pretending to work. If I'm listening to, because I like to listen to gospel music when I'm working, but if it's on the screen whilst I'm doing work, I'm not going to take it off because you're walking past me. So it's that confidence that I built up from very early on. He recommended me for a role that I believed I wasn't qualified for, a few months after. I went from being an assistant to a project manager on a different project within a year. And it was solely because of the relationship that I'd built with this man. You know, I'm able to knock on his door and say, oh, Stuart, I need this, I need that. and where people that have been on that project's been going on forever. They've been on project for like 10 years. They can't approach him. So it's those soft skills that we talked about earlier that would really, really, really help you in the workplace, in interviews and things like that. We talked about the difference between operations and project management. What do I love about projects is, one thing I really love is how you move from different teams to different teams, and now you've got to form new relationships like all the time. Like, finished a sprint a couple of weeks ago with a client. I've delivered that. Now I'm going to a new client. I've got to adapt quickly, because you sometimes join a project that's been ongoing for a while. You're with a new team. They've formed their own relationships, and now you've got to, as a new person, bring yourself into it. Not only that, you have to lead them. They have their ways of working or established already. How do you form that relationship with them? Some people say e-coffee, people suggest different things. I don't even like football. Well, I pretend I do, because I work with a lot of men in my workplace. My brothers are fans of Chelsea, so I'll just be like, oh, Chelsea played last week. Oh, really? Yeah. Did you watch it? Da, da, da. Before you know it, oh, by the way, that thing you were supposed to do last week, you've not done it. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm going to get it done today. So because you're building that they feel like your friends. They feel like they can tell you. And same as if something's going wrong and I really want to sit down and have a serious conversation, when you call everyone to a meeting, guys, we need to have a talk, it's daunting. How do you navigate that in the workplace to ensure that you need to tell people, guys, we're not delivering, but you do it softly? You've got to land, you know those Monday morning calls where you're like, how's your weekend? And then someone tells you, oh, yeah, my dog had to take him to the vets. And you're really like, time's going, and I really want to tell you we're not delivering. How do you do it, But you've got to listen to them. It's listening to people. These are the key things of project management. And time management is a big one. When I say you're held to account, if you forecasted, oh yeah, buy yourself time. If you forecast that you're going to do something in 2 months, and 2 months come, you're like, we need a bit more time. Not quite. You're not very good at budgeting and forecasting, are you? You don't understand. It's always better to leave a bit of room. So if I'm going to do something in 2 months, I'll say, oh, it'll take 3 months. And then when it takes 2 months, then, oh, you're really good at your job, aren't you? It works. So it's being able to really work with people. That is the thing about project management. It's about people. If you feel like, oh, I don't have the confidence, this is the time to start working on what do I need to do to really develop myself and build myself to be able to navigate the workplace. Project management plays a crucial role in organizations being able to achieve their goal. You have different types of project management. You've got technical project management. You've got, people work in engineering. You've got like different aspects of project management, and I always big up project management, because I say every organization needs a project manager. Every organization. You've got NHS project manager, healthcare project managers, you've got banking project managers. Every organization needs a project manager, because there will always be a change that they need to deliver. And to deliver a change, you need a project manager. That's one of the reasons why I tell people, I took the non-traditional route to project management. And I say the non-traditional route is because a lot of people don't actually study project management as a master's. You find that in the workplace, you've probably worked with a lot of people that they're project managers, but they're like, mate, I don't know what I'm doing. And you're like, yeah, we know, because I don't know what I'm doing either. So, and what happens is you just start picking each other's brains and sort of helping each other out along the journey. And I remember, being a young person when I first started my career years ago, and being put on a 1.6 billion then project, and I'm not talking millions, I'm talking billions, and it's high priority project. And you're having to speak to people, you're still trying to learn on job, but you want to deliver as well. It's very important to really understand what project management is, the life cycle, what's expected to deliver. And when I touched upon the different methodologies before, waterfall and agile, they apply to different organizations. Different organizations might, some people now, they've come up with a new term, Wagile, incorporating, you know, both waterfall and agile methodology, because they've learned that you can't, waterfall assumes that things are done in stages. You start this phase, and then you move on to this phase, and you move on to this phase. Where agile is telling you, we've got to deliver something, release this one, improve it, release, and things like that. So people have now learned that the art of project management actually requires both, because to be fair, waterfall is a bit more organized, because some people were agile, they say, oh, we work in an agile way, we don't need documentations. Yeah, you do, because if I need to be able to pull you up on something down the line, we need those documentations. So incorporating both really does work for a lot of departments. So, I mean, when I worked at Thames Water, I think one of the most challenging things was I had never worked in, I've come from defense, which is so different to how, you know, it's a lot of engineering, science, and IT and all that stuff. And I've come to water. And I think the biggest challenge was, you know, having to work with the operational guys, where I've said, I don't want to do anything operational. I want to focus on projects only, but I have to deliver a project within an operational department. It's wearing my PPE and going to actually get to know these people, get to know them, because we were making a massive change in the organization, and I needed the truth from these people. I really needed to be part of them, but they saw me as corporate. Oh yeah, you stick a bit of gear on, you tell us what to do, and you get paid. Someone said that to me, and I was like, I don't know how much you think I get paid, but I'll probably get more as a lorry driver. And then we laughed, and he was like, do you know what? Should we go on a drive in the lorry? And I was like, why not? And then we just went on a drive, because, you know, they have their lorries that they transport wastewater and all that stuff. And he just started telling me all the things he likes about his job, all the frustrations and all that. He was like, at the end, he was like, you're all right, you know. And I was like, yeah, I think so too. I think you're all right too, you know. So we were able to really, really connect. And it's that connection that you really need to with people, because he's gone from thinking I'm this corporate person that earns a lot by telling them what to do, to being able to be open and honest, giving me valuable information that we actually need to deliver that project. So as, you know, it can be a bit daunting, because you do need those, you know, technical side, but I always say that project management is really, really about your people skills. It's really, really about your people skills. You know, if you're a shy person and you need to tell people that we've got to make this change, this is when we're going to do it. I've planned it that, you know, using the SME knowledge, the subject matter expert knowledge, I've planned my project, I've put dates, I've put costs against it and everything. I need to interact with these people. Oh, but I think we need to make a change. How do I propose those changes to the board for them to accept after they've already agreed one change? How do I go and request for another $1 million after I've told them 5 million is going to do the job? They're going to say to, well, what, you think we pluck money out of the trees? The things they come up with, I mean, there's the things they come up with. You be in a board meeting and you're trying to request more money, and they're like, you think we've plucked money out of the tree, don't you? Another $1 million, where are we supposed to get that from? And then you've got the documentation that someone has told you that, oh, we don't do documents anymore. That's what you're going to need to back up the requesting for more, you know. So whilst it can be very challenging, I think, you know, I have really, really, really amazing community of, you know, people that we bounce ideas off each other, and they're not even in project management. And the reason I said I wanted to touch upon that is because you find that project management is not just about project managers. You've got your BAs, you've got your developers, you've got all these people that actually make the team. And when I started, I had zero technical knowledge. I was coming from, with my master's, I was like, yeah, we can change the world, you know. And you get in there, and you just see that these subject matter experts that have been doing their job for 40 years, or some people have been in the same company for 40 years, they know it like the back of their hand, and you're not telling them, we need to make a change, we need to do that. They are going to fight back. They're going to challenge you. How do you challenge someone that's got all the wealth of knowledge, and you've just come with, you know, your project management certification, you want to help them deliver and stuff. It's being that leadership. It's being able to take people who really know it, people who think you probably shouldn't be where you are because you're not as technical as they believe they deserve the role. I mean, I mentioned code switching earlier. I am like a very northern person. When I moved down south, because I did move to Reading for work for a bit, I had to start like adjusting how I speak because I didn't want to be in the meeting and someone say, sorry, can you repeat that? So I'll just speak in a way that anyone that's in the meeting can really understand what I'm saying. So I had to reduce my northerness at work. So when I moved back to Preston, I was like, oh, thank God. But then I still work from home with people down south, you know. But that being said, there are some pros to project management. There are a number of cons as well. There's been times at my previous workplace where I cried. I cried because I'm like, this thing is going wrong and it's on my head, and you start to panic that you're going to lose your job. It's a valid fear because you're like, oh my God, it's on my head. If it goes wrong, and it's not me that's not doing the work, but it's on my head if it goes wrong. So it is a big hat to wear. It is a big, especially if you're dealing with projects that are very dear to the business, projects that are going to change the business, the way the business works, projects that are looking at making people redundant, you know, and you're dealing with people's lives here. So it can be a bit much. And you might work with some managers that, because they work late nights, they don't say it, but they expect you to work late nights as well. It's that confidence to be able to say, my hours of work are between 8:30 to 5 p.m. I am able to flex on some days. However, we promote work-life balance in the workplace. So refer back to your contract on work-life balance. It's that confidence to be able to really say the things. There'll be things in your contract and they want to go against your contract. How do you deal with that? How do you tell them no? It's okay to say no in the workplace if it's getting too much for you. It's okay. You don't have to take everything on. Early years of my career, my friend can testify, I used to take everything on. 11 p.m., I'm still working. I'm sending emails, 3 a.m., because I really want to do a good job. And then I just realized that during the work hours, I just want to sleep, so I'm not as productive. Because you want to prove that you're so good at your job, you've drained yourself out, and you're not even as productive. You know, so it's being able to really balance and manage yourself really well. That time management is the key. You've said you're going to deliver something on the 13th of April. 12th of April, you really should be emailing your client or your sponsor. Oh, by the way, what we're delivering tomorrow is coming tomorrow. It will be here by this time. You know, it's that being able to communicate, manage time. That's why I said the soft skills in project management are very, very important. The technical skills you can learn, but the soft skills you develop yourself, you know. But yeah, so different departments, everyone does project management in different ways, but they are set methodologies that you apply across, you know, each organization. But yeah, that is it from me. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to take them now, happy to take them later. But yeah, thank you. Anyone got any questions? Yes, Bro David. Mhm.
Okay, you talked about project not going well,
Mhm.
and the project is on you.
Mhm.
If it goes down, you go down with the project,
Mhm.
and you are playing your part
Mhm.
as a project manager, and somebody else is not doing their job well. As a project manager, to the best of my understanding, I know that you don't have the power to fire and sack.
Mhm.
So, how do you try to move those people forward? That's my.
Very, very good
That's one
question.
question. Okay, okay, I'll ask the other one later.
Okay, yeah. I'll just go into that question with an example because it's happened to me in a workplace where me and the person in question, we actually really, really tight right now. He did a reference for me after I left that job. That's how close we are. But this particular person was hindering my project. He wouldn't do what I needed. He wouldn't do, and I just thought he didn't like me. Turns out the guy is just as new to the company as I was then, and he was trying to find his feet. And all I had to do was have a conversation with him and say, are we okay? Is everything okay? You know, is there anything I can do to help to, you know, make things go faster and things like that? And he was like, no, I'm just a bit stressed. This is I could do with someone, delegating that piece of work to someone else. I'm happy to pick it up in the middle and help out. So that's one scenario. Another scenario, which I don't really like to go down this route, is escalate it. So the director that I mentioned earlier that asked me to mentor his daughter, when he sat me in the room, he said he likes something. One thing he really liked about me was I feed the beast. I was like, Stuart, what is feeding the beast? He said, that thing that's going to come bite you, you give him the food before it comes bite you. Give him the information to the right people that can help you out, that people that need to know that information before things goes burst. You know, so it's really getting managers involved. You've cited that, okay, happened to me recently. I think I told Denzel about it. A work colleague was working under me. She's in probation. So very unfortunate. And she had personal issues, and I was aware of her personal issues. I tried to speak to her as, you know, I tried to give her the little task, and I was taking on so much just so we can deliver. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to do those tasks. Things like, okay, we go in a meeting, just take the minutes. Don't even do the work, just take the minutes. Unfortunately, I didn't get minutes back the next day. 24 hours, 48 hours. And I'm like, if I'm giving you the littlest tasks, I've moved the big ones from you, I've tried to work with you, but you're not giving anything back. I spoke to her line manager and I said, this is the issue we're having. I've tried different methods of dealing with people, with her, tried to help her, tried to encourage her, tried to see where we can support, but she's just not doing the work. So I've now escalated it to the line manager. A lot of us work in matrix organizations. You have your task manager and you have your line manager, you know. So there are things that you should be escalating to the line manager to deal with, so they're aware. And if it's gonna hinder work, they need to be swapping that person out with someone else that's going to do the job, because you've now escalated it. But if you keep it stum, something's not going well, you've not told anyone, why didn't you tell someone since it's been happened 3 months ago? Like, why didn't you mention it to anyone? Those are the questions they will ask you, like, why didn't you raise a concern? So you're telling me then that is a risk to a project, because it is a risk. That should be in your risk log. You know, an employee not performing and is going to cause a delay on a particular piece of task should be marked as a risk, because you now need to find a replacement for the employee, because that could cause an impact on your delivery date. So those are the things that you have to be raising on time to line managers. And one thing I'll really say is key is I'm still trying to get in the practice of making sure that I know the direct reports of all my team members, who they're reporting into. So in case of things like that, I can raise it on time. I can have that personal conversation. So I'll go down the route of having a personal conversation with that person to really get the information of why this is happening, if there's anything we can do. Because some people, you find that they want to do the job, but just they don't know how to do it. They are very keen on doing it, but they just genuinely don't know how to do it. So those kind of people, you know how to deal with them, how to support them to actually deliver. But there's some people that are just like, oh, do you know what, man, I went out last weekend, I'm knackered. You've been knackered for like the past 4 weekends, like, you know, that's no longer an excuse, and it's now starting to affect work. So those are the kind of things that you need to be escalating to the right people in the organization to ensure that it doesn't come biting you. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah, sorry. My second question is that you talked about waterfall and Agile, because I'm just trying to dip my foot into the project management. Apart from documentation, is there a way you can practice waterfall and Agile within a particular project? when it's not just about the documentation that makes a difference? Is it realistic to practice both of them within a project?
Very good question. Yes. So it's not, waterfall is not just about documentation. Waterfall differentiates is they believe a lot. They believe you start with your initiation and then you move over to the next phase. You finish phase by phase. But what Agile allows for is room for things to go left or right. For things to change. Agile is more change friendly. It acknowledges that things might change. You might need to change the requirements. That means you need to deliver the product in a slightly different way. So depending on the organization, they might apply both, as I mentioned. So with your documentation, yes, the way you manage people. Agile believes that people should be left to work in a way that suits them, as long as they do the tasks. You know, you've got your list of tasks, you've prioritized them, you get the team together. If you're delivering sort of in a sprint, using sprints, you get the team together, they then pick, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. You leave people to their own accord and believe that they're capable. It's about trusting. Whereas in a waterfall world, for you to try, I have to know that you're going to do that. I have to know that you're going to do, yeah. So it's combining both, but it's not about do we do Agile or not. It's about how much Agile can we do on a project. For a lot of companies now that incorporate in both, how agile can we be? Some companies might decide, you know what, we just need the key risks and stuff. We don't need to go into the low level risk, and they might allow that because of how they work. So it's about how agile does that organization need to be. There's different elements of it, as I mentioned, the way you manage people, the way you document, the way you're delivering. It's very key. It's that delivering that's very key, because as I mentioned, if you're delivering in time boxes and you're planning, if you've got like 3 time boxes in a stage, for example, where you've got to deliver the work, you know, I need to release iPhone software 15 in a time box 1. We might plan on releasing time box 2, 15.1, but can I trust these people to do it within the time frame of 3 weeks? Yes, I'll leave them to their accord to do it, but they've said this is what they're gonna do, it. I trust them to do it. Whereas waterfall, I'm gonna supervise you to do it a bit. You know, I wouldn't say it's micromanaging it, but we might have those check-ins. As a project manager, when the team are doing daily check-ins, 15-minute daily check-ins, I might not be there. I trust the task manager, the project manager to manage that. So it's that trust that's really big in Agile world, is trusting people enough to do the work. But if it's not done, it's still on you. So it's how you deal with that. You could go in once a week as a project manager if they invite you to their check-ins. Or you could trust that the task manager will report if, you know, anything's going to go left. So there is really, because of how the teams work, you usually, in an agile world, you have a scrum master. And the scrum master is this people coach person, expert. They know how to coach the team. They're the mentors for the team. They leads the team. Whereas, so the project manager can focus on the wider picture. So the team dynamics is very different in waterfall and agile world as well as the other parts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Red David.
Sorry, because of time, we're going to take questions at the end. Yes, I would also like to introduce Mr. Ife.
Hi everyone, my name is Ifeoluwa. Do we have any medical professionals in the house? Okay, so when I say medical professional, it doesn't have to be doctor, it could be a nurse, it could be a physiotherapist, it could be a mental health practitioner. So basically, I'm just here to give a brief overview about making choices, opportunities, and skills that you need to succeed in anything health-related, medicine, nursing. I hope that you all find it useful. So it's, just brief overview of my own career. So I went to medical school in Nigeria, OAU, from 2008 to 2015. So that's about 6, 7 years of medical school, and then did my internship and 1 year NYSC service, which I believe most Nigerians will be accustomed to, and then worked with the state government in Ondo State for a couple of years, and I felt, well, I wasn't going in the right direction. This is not what I want for my career. So I took the UK licensing exams and came to the UK, and then came the crossroads. What do I want to do with my career in the UK? Because where it gets to a point in your career, you decide, oh, what do I want to do? Do I want to specialize in this field? Do I want to go into that field? So there's a lot of decisions that needs to be made at that point. Can I ask, if you're in the medical profession, just to raise your hand a little bit? So can I ask you, why did you choose your career? What was your motivation? Do you have a mic?
Like I mentioned earlier, I'm studying mental health nursing, and
Yeah.
it was my dad that actually got me into studying nursing, because he wanted one of his kids to study mental health nursing. In
Okay.
terms of the drive I had, it was more, I love working with people. I enjoy working with people rather than maybe working
Right.
at Tesco or something.
Okay.
Where I got my biggest drive to really want to excel in
Yeah.
mental health nursing was in my second year, my last placement. I was working with the community team, so
Okay.
Preston CMHT,
Yeah.
and we just I was I so we had a multidisciplinary team, and I was working with a social worker. He was acting as a mentor, so he would take me to people's houses, and I just saw how people were struggling, because you're not exposed to that on the ward.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is something I would like to get involved in, getting
Okay.
to know people, and how can we support them as mental health nurses in the community. So that was where I got like my drive from.
Right. So that's one of the common reasons why people choose field within the health a profession, looking after people, passion to take care of people. Does anyone want to share their reason for choosing a medical career?
It's kind of similar, to be fair. I've always just wanted to be a doctor from when I was younger. There are a lot of doctors in my family.
Okay.
So I've just grown up seeing a lot of people be doctors. And
Okay.
I just liked the whole experience. I've watched my godfather. He has a hospital in Nigeria, so I've worked there
Mhm.
before, like just as a receptionist, just like for like summer
Okay.
jobs and stuff. So I just see how things are being done, and just that appeal to want to help people and make decisions, like tasking decisions
Okay.
on people's health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So solving people's problems, isn't it? Yeah. So that's another thing. Anyone else? Okay. So can I ask? Sorry, what's your name? Chidera. Okay. What year are you now in medical school? Third year. Okay. So how are you finding it now? What skills would you say up to now that you've been able to pick up in medical school, aside, the general medical stuff? Are there any other soft skills or transferable skills that you think you've learned and you will be using later in your career?
I would just say maybe being more bold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you talk to a lot of patients.
Yeah.
Because in UCLan you start your placement quite early from first year.
Yeah.
So you get to talk to patients. You just have to, whether you're in the mood or not, you just have to, talk to people and
Yeah.
kind of empathize with them
Yeah.
and still find a way to solve their problems. So
Yeah.
being bold, even if you don't know what it is, just
Yeah.
giving that bold front, like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'll speak with my supervisor,
Yeah.
stuff like that, and
Yeah.
then yeah.
Yeah, so that's very good. You will find that you will be needing a lot of that as you go on in your career, because basically people come to you to solve their problems, isn't it? So you have to find a solution, but oftentimes there might be no solution, or there might be no solution right away. So you need to be able to plan. So I'll be going through some of these skills. You need to be able to plan, not only when you're looking after patients, but also for yourself. So 2 stages of planning. Planning in making decisions for patients, and also making decisions for your own career. I presume you would have been going through a lot of rotations, postings, and things like that. You have to plan ahead. You have to plan ahead for your examinations. You will need more of these planning skills when you finish medical school, because you would want to apply for, say, specialties. You would probably want to take some licensing exams, and some of these things you have to apply like a year ahead, or start planning a year ahead. You need to maybe gather some things, some skills there and there, some courses there and there. So it's very important to be able to know how to plan. And also when looking after patients, you need to be able to know how to plan as well. Sometimes you might need to bring a patient 2, 3, 4 times in order to be able to solve their problems. And also, while planning, you also need to know when to ask for help, when to delegate, when to seek help from colleagues. Is very important. So you need to be able to build good relationship with people, not only patients, your colleagues as well, your seniors, your supervisors. So that brings us into communication skills. So you cannot do without communication skills in your career, whichever field you decide to go into. Communication skills and empathy, they work hand in hand, because a lot of times, even in my current practice, patients just wants to talk to you. You might not always have solutions to their problems, but just the way you react to what they're saying or how they're talking makes them feel better. I've had patients come to me with mental health problems, and when they're leaving, they're like, "Oh, I feel better by talking to you." Things like that. "Oh, you've been a very nice doctor. You've been listening." So you need to learn how to demonstrate empathy and active listening. Those are very, very important skills you will need in your career. There are lots of resources. If you need any, I can always share them later, that would help you to develop these skills. There are actually some courses that are specific to our area, where you know how to show empathy towards people, and active listening. Especially active listening and time management are 2 other key resources, because in most cases, whichever specialty you go into, you have only a limited amount of time to listen to people or listen to what they have to say. So 15 minutes to see one person. So you need to be able to listen to everything they have to say within that 15 minutes, know what you want to do within that 15 minutes, and communicate what your plan to them within that time as well. So it's a lot of skills, and the more you do it, the more you get used to it. So those are some of the skills. So if we go back to the previous slide, please. So yeah, like I said, empathy and communication skills, very, very important. Leadership, very, very important. Most health professions is more like an apprenticeship. So when you're at a level, you automatically are a leader, because there are people coming behind you. You need to be able to pass on some skills to them, some knowledge to them, whether in a formal leadership position or informal leadership position. For example, in my practice, medical students, I've not done any formal leadership training, but sometimes you have to mentor medical students. You have to mentor trainees that are coming along. You have to mention maybe paramedics and things like that. So you need to be able to listen to them, bring yourself down to their position, because you've had the experience. You need to be able to know how to relate your own experience to them, whether when they're seeing patients and wanting to make decisions. So some people are quick learners, some people are slow learners. So you need to be able to assess which is which and go at their own pace. And also when, helping them to make decisions about their career as well. So it's very important. And you will find yourself in a lot of leadership role, whether leading a team or leading people coming behind you, things like that. So it's very important. Teaching skills also it's related to leadership. So you need to be able to know how to pass knowledge, because like I said, it's more like an apprenticeship. I wouldn't be here if someone didn't teach me. So I've learned from all my teachers as well. So it's a very important skill, teaching. And I think we've talked about planning, resilience and hard work, very important. Medicine or any health-related field is often a thankless job. And you will pass through a lot of hurdles. You will be frustrated. You would you won't sleep at night sometimes. You would feel very sad sometimes. You would fail some exams. Some people, I don't think there's been anyone that would say, I've never failed an exam. In medical, if you don't fail in medical school, you might fail postgraduate exams. You need to be able to handle things like that. It's been reported that mental health challenges are quite, common among health practitioners. But the problem is we don't speak out. You would hardly, personally, I've been practicing for how many years now? I've never seen like a doctor or nurse come to me to talk about their mental health. We really find it hard to talk about those things, which is one thing that I like about this country. I mean, where we come from, mental health is not a big thing. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your mental health. So it's important to be able to, manage these things, but sometimes you can't manage these things. It's important to know who to talk to, get advice from seniors. Oftentimes there are like human relations managers within either your school or your hospital trust or wherever you're working. If you're struggling, you need to be able to get help at the opportune time to make sure that things don't derail. But you would need a lot of resilience and hard work as you go through your career, as you go through examinations, hard work training, often taking years. And you need to be able to balance this with planning, when to do this, when to do that. But in the midst of that as well, you need to be able to know when to say, I need to rest. If not, burnout. Have you heard of burnout? Yeah. Burnout, there have been a couple of times that I've told my wife, I think I'm burning out. I need to rest. So in the last 2 years, what I've practically done is to make sure I book my leave, say every 2 to 3 months. So every 2 to 3 months, I have like a week or two where I'm out of work. And one thing, so initially in my career, it was difficult sometimes when you're out of work to forget about work. So I think one skill that every health professional needs, well, your work is important, but you need to be able to detach yourself, because people are dumping a lot on you. When they come to see you, they come to dump a lot of problems, which they're helping you solve. You're trying to help them solve. But some people, it can get overwhelming sometimes. So you need to be able to detach yourself from all of that and be in your own space and protect your own mental health as well, and know when you need rest, because you will do a lot of work and your body starts to tell you at some point. But a lot of people ignore these signs, and that's why you see doctors slumping, nurses slumping and things like that, dying early. Some people don't know they have high blood pressure. I've seen colleagues where, oh, let me just check your blood pressure. Blood pressure 200, 110. So those are some of the things that you need to be able to tell. So that's very important. Next slide, please. Do we you can ask. I don't want to wait till the end to ask questions. If you have any questions now, just let me know. So we've talked about the skills. So there are certain things to look at because you will get to a point in your life, like I said, where you have to make decisions. What do I want to do going forward? Because oftentimes you have to specialize either in something or want to do something specifically. It doesn't have to be clinical all the time. It could be non-clinical. So, but there are certain things that you need to consider because oftentimes some people find themselves after doing 2-3 years of that thing, I'm like, this is not for me. So it's a good thing if you are able to make that decision early enough before going into something that isn't for you. So I believe these are some of the things we need to consider. So you need to know what your interests are right at the start and actually think about it really well. Don't wait till it gets to that point where you have to make that decision. You need to start thinking about it early. Is this something for me? Would I enjoy this thing in the long run? Say, for example, you want to do cardiology and think about it. You have to put the pros. So what I do is you do the pros and the cons of going into that area. This and this is this and the pros. For example, say pros are this has been a long-time dream of mine to be a cardiologist or something like that. Cardiologists are well paid. What else? Say cons, 9-10 years of training. Cons, work lots of hours. Say you have to work 60-70 hours a week. So you need to kind of balance that and see what you want to do. You need to consider your strengths and weaknesses as well. So I would use myself as an example looking at this too. So I'm currently a family physician, and there are certain reasons why I decided to go into family medicine. So at some point in my life, I realized I'm somebody that gets stressed quickly. I wanted to do obstetrics and gynecology. So I had to look at it, pros and cons. Okay, this is what I love. I would like to do this. It's a relatively enjoyable field. You see a lot of challenging cases, things like that. You are well paid, das and that. Cons, 7 to 8 years of training. Am I ready for that? I felt not at my age. So you do lots of nights. Personally, I'm not someone that likes doing nights. And I like my weekends free as well. Then litigation. O&G, lots of litigation, because women, especially in a Western country like this, you make a small mistake, you're in trouble. And sometimes you don't even make any mistake, but they still find things, they find problems, and you do find a lot of doctors getting stressed, burnout, suicide from things like this. So that was my own decision. So I had to decide, this is what I want to do. I want to do something that doesn't stress me out too much, give me more time to spend with my family, also be able to see lots of undifferentiated cases, and also give me more opportunities to practice in other countries. So currently I'm a member of the Royal College, and I can go to Canada or Australia to work. So you need to maybe choose something that would also maximize your opportunities as well. Work-life balance, which is, I've talked a little bit about it as well. What is work-life balance to me might be different from what is work-life balance to you. Some people don't care about nights or weekends. They're just happy to have maybe a night out in the week and they're fine. Some people don't care about spending time with their family. They rather spend time at work. So yeah, there are people like that. But for me, I just felt I want my work-life balance. I want good time with my family, and there are different specialties where you can't get. You know, you've got good like work-life balance. There are some specialties that you know, no, this this is not good. But some people still like it. Like I said, you need to consider length of training, how long it will take you to acquire a skill, whether it be clinical or non-clinical. Finances, I know people don't want to talk too much about this, but it's important. Where you'll be well paid, it's important. Um, you don't want to go through 8, 9, 10 years of training and then paid peanuts. Um, so also the demand or how available or accessible the skills or the jobs are in that area. You need to make sure that when you finish or when you're done training or doing whatever you want to do, you know you've definitely got something waiting for you and not competing with like 100 people for one job. So that's important as well. You need to consider countries of interest. For example, some people say, I don't want to stay in the UK, prefer the US for certain reasons known to them, or you prefer Australia, you prefer New Zealand, some people prefer the Middle East. So you need to do your own research and find out what you need to do to get things like licensing done, examinations and things like that for each country. I will try to be quick about this. So like I said, your interest could be clinical, non-clinical. We'll talk a bit about the clinical interest. So it could be, if you want to go into a specialty, say acute or subacute specialty. So acute means that you've seen really, really unwell patients, and oftentimes emergency medicine or acute medicine. Some people like that, the pro-adrenaline people, people that like fast-paced work. That's not me. And some people prefer, like me, the subacute specialties where things are a bit more slow paced. You can take a bit of your time. Some people prefer hospital. Some people prefer community. I work mostly in the community. Some people prefer non-patient facing specialties. So there are specialties where you don't see people as well. For example, if you feel, oh, I don't really like talking to people too much. So there are a few specialties like pathology, radiology. You don't really interact with people that much. So you need to consider what you want to do. You need to start looking at the application process ahead of time, how long the training would be, what's the competition ratios, things like that. Competition ratio simply means the number of available posts in training compared to the number of people applying. So sometimes you have to look at the previous year, how many people applied, how many people got the posts, is it quite competitive? If you want to apply for, say, neurosurgery, you're probably competing with 50 people for one post. So you need to be really good and get all your things in order. So basically, I'm sure you know a bit more about this for Chidera. So when you finish, you'll be doing your foundation years, which is 2 years, and then you need to start considering what you want to do at that point. Take your specialty exams. You need to consider preparing for interview. So just to give you a little bit about what the UK training system is like, there are run-through. Some trainings are called run-through, which means when you start from, say, ST1 or CT1, that's at the beginning of training, you're basically running all the way through to whenever you finish. So there's no break. So say obstetrics and gynae is one of them. So from ST1 to XT7 is a run-through training. While we've got some other specialties like medicines, most surgical specialties, there's always a break. So you do the first 3 years, what they call internal medicine training or core surgical training. So those first 3 years, they expect you to, it's like the preliminary levels, and you're also expected to clear your Royal College's examination. And then once you finish those 3 years and you've cleared those examinations, you then have to apply again for higher specialty training. So it's a bit tricky. And people kind of find it difficult sometimes. Once you finish those 3 years, then you start going through the process of applying. Sometimes there's a break, they have to wait 1, 2, 3 years before being able to get a post in their specialty training. So it's a bit tricky. So you need to consider all of those as well. And you need to, like I said, consider other countries that might suit what you're looking for. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just a brief summary of some of the specialties. Average training length in the UK is between 3 to 8 years. I've just put some of the specialties there, how long it takes. In the US as well, average is about 3 to 6 years for most specialties or fellowships. So it's quite shorter in some countries. I think the UK has one of the longest training times. The reason for that is we work less hours here in the UK. So most people tend to work 40, 48 hours in the UK. In places like US, you see doctors working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. So it's crazy there, but they earn a lot more eventually. So briefly, some of the non-clinical, so clinical basically means you're seeing patients. Some of the non-clinical interests are if you want to go into things like public health or into policy making for government and things like that, the NHS. So oftentimes you might need to do like a master's or a formal training in public health. You don't really need to be a doctor or sometimes a nurse to do some of these things. You might just be basic medical sciences, and then you do like an extra degree in public health just to give you that training or skill that you need. You could also go into medical education. Teaching, there's often formal degrees like a 1 or 2 year medical education program, and then you can become a lecturer or tutor medical students. Also, if you're, say, a consultant, most of the times you need to do like a 1 year medical education course to be able to train other residents coming up. So some people do that as well, and they become trainers. So they often call them trainers or educational supervisors. You can decide to go into research, which is very good, and also good work-life balance with research. So most times people do like MRS degree. There are quite a lot of universities that offer that. It's often 1 or 2 years, and you get a degree in research, and sometimes they retain you. Sometimes you get jobs with good private or government companies to do research, or pharmaceutical companies. We do have lots of medical professionals going into IT, digital health these days. So you see, there are people I've seen a few doctors, all they do is help the NHS to create, their software, things like admin systems and things like that. So and they don't see any patients, they enjoy the work, but of course they've had to do the work, learn some IT skills, things like coding and things like that. So that's also another non-clinical interest to consider. How many of us know Aproko Doctor online? So basically it does medical content creation. I don't think it works formally doing like patient-facing job or anything like that. I think that's basically what it does, and it's making good money. And administrative roles, there are a lot of doctors in administrative roles. You see like medical director or administrative role in the NHS. They're just supervising other non-clinical staff. So things like that are opportunities that are available within the health profession as well. Next slide, please. No. Time for a break? Okay. You have a question? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So from Nigeria, I don't know if, like I said, the litigation is much for non-European pharmacists coming to the UK to practice. So for the past, this is my 4th year,
I've not been able to do anything pharmaceutical. And the longer I stay, the more I lose my skills, because I've gone through a lot in pharmacy school in Nigeria. And well, I've met some friends who were doctors who told me that practicing as a pharmacist here, you have to be very, very good. You have to do this, you have to do that. And to be honest, I went through a lot in pharmacy school. I'm not a bad pharmacist, but when they try to scare me and tell me how much the pharmacists here are being like looked upon, the expectations on a pharmacist here, kind of makes me discouraged. Then looking at this non-clinical interest, I know you were talking that in the aspect of medical doctors. Now, as a pharmacist, it's kind of giving me a different perception, like, okay, if I can't do clinical pharmacy, I could do like industrial pharmacy.
Yeah.
I could do, the media.
Pharmaceutical research.
Yeah, exactly, journalism, pharmacy, and all that. But I don't have the resources I need. I've not really met Nigerian pharmacists here. The ones I've met, they've been here for like 15 years, and when they came, all these litigations were not there. So I'm like blank every day. I'm just like, oh God, how do I do this?
Okay. That's a tough one. Do you still have interest in doing clinical pharmacy?
To be honest, now it's like, it used to be like this, but now it's like dropping because I've not practiced, and I'm losing some knowledge.
Yeah, I know it can be frustrating, and I don't think it's as bad as whoever you've spoken to may have painted it. Obviously, there are litigations everywhere, wherever you go, whether as a pharmacist, nurse, but I think I have a few friends who are pharmacists, and from what I know, before I go into that, have you got your UK licensing? Right. So from what I know, there are a few UK universities running diplomas. I think it's often like a 9 to 12 month diploma for pharmacists from other countries, where you basically do like, it's more like a diploma, and sometimes you can upgrade it to an MSc, and you do some examinations, and at the end you are able to practice as a UK pharmacist. I think you do an initial 1 year of like supervised practice, and then you can become independent. If I can find some more information on that, I can share it later, but I am fully aware of that. So that might be something worth researching into. Sorry, just checking. I think, was it University of Wolverhampton? Nika, do you remember? Was it Sunderland? Yeah, I think Sunderland is one of those. There are about 5, 6 of them. But from what I know, you need to kind of plan in advance, because they are overbooked at the moment, because I think a lot of pharmacists are coming into the UK from overseas. But like you said, non-clinical interests also, it's just I think doing a bit of research, I'm sure you'll find information. I think most of them are involved doing a diploma or something, just to kind of gain that additional skill to get into that area. Say, for example, you want to do pharmaceutical research, you probably need a research degree before you can go into that. So maybe 1 year of an MRS degree or an MSc degree might put you in the right direction. But I think that's why one of the things I was going to say at the end is doing your own research, and also networking with people. I know you've not been lucky enough to come across any pharmacists so far, but if I find any information, I will share it with you. But hopefully, looking a bit online as well, you might be able to get some more information about it, and looking at the diploma stuff. Does that answer your question? Is that okay?
That's a little bit helpful, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So, are we taking a break?
Yeah. Can we give him a round of applause, please? Thank you so much. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. So we're going to go on a break for 10 minutes. And in the course of those 10 minutes, just go around, talk to people, get to know them, network. You have your LinkedIn accounts, follow each other on LinkedIn accounts, but make use of the 10 minutes. And also for the people who had questions, you could go meet whoever you need to meet, ask your questions. Thank you. See you in 10 minutes. Fantastic. Okay, can I get everyone's attention, please? Can I get everyone? I'm going to give a disclaimer though. So, we did say this was going to be from 10 to 4. However, everyone was late. Everyone was late, and for us to be able to deliver everything, because after this there will also be a talk about applying for jobs, we would run over. So that is a disclaimer you give, but not too much. We won't run so far out of time, but we will run over. Okay, so we'll start with the group activity. I don't know how that table's going to do that because you'd need a lot more. So I'd say the table over here should merge with that so you guys are able to communicate. Can you go to next slide, please? Lovely. So the group activity, this you're going to have to do for 10 minutes. We're going to reduce the time, but you'll do for 10 minutes. And it's for everyone on the table to develop, and there'll be a presentation of a proposal for a community initiative that addresses a relevant social or environmental issue. And this exercise is supposed to, would I say, elicit the certain skills like planning, research, team collaboration, problem solving, creativity, time management and organization, adaptability, resilience, presentation and communication. So you all have 10 minutes right now to talk about it. You have your phones, there's a pen and paper, make a plan, a very short presentation. It doesn't have to be so technical, but something, and work together to produce a result. Your time starts now. Time's up. Can I get your attention, please? Time's up. Okay. Cool. Thank you. So, thanks. No, not 5 more minutes. So what we're going to do right now is that someone will present their findings in 2 minutes. And the idea is, I think 1 minute to just present, 1 minute to present what you guys came up with, and then I'd say 1.5 minutes to talk about the skills that were required to actually get to a solution. So we will start with table 2. Yes.
So we discussed about a problem and we spoke about how we would resolve it. So the problem was young people in the community vaping, and then we diversed into young people. We diversed into young people not being raised appropriately, and then thinking about why that happens, especially in this country. So, thinking about the skills we would need in terms of when dealing with young people, someone older dealing with a younger person, you would have to adapt to their way of thinking. So we gave examples of if your child doesn't want to play, you have to respect their autonomy in that regard, that they don't want to play right now, and don't just force them to play. So you're adapting to what they want. And we also spoke about the importance of disciplining your child and not just letting them grow up in a wayward manner. So not abusing them, but letting them know that if you've done something wrong, this isn't right. And we looked at what has happened actually in our community because of lack of discipline. So people are vaping, people are turning to self-harming, people are doing, young people specifically doing all sorts of various things. And if we discipline them from a young age, there is a better chance that they won't end up doing that. A few points that we spoke about was peer pressure leads to people wanting to vape and people wanting to behave inappropriately. I'll stop there because of time.
Thank you for that. So, from working together, what skills do you think you applied, everyone applied? Yes, as a team. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. Can we give them a So, table 1.
So I'm going to be talking about the initiative. Okay, so in light of the escalating environmental concerns, we are proposing the implementation of a recycling initiative. We've named it Go Green. This is to support the environmental factors that we're facing of destruction of our planet. So we are encouraging youngsters to recycling. We want to go into do community outreach in schools. We have a budget from the council of £2,000 to help the outreach. So we're going to be going into schools and encouraging youngsters to bring recycled recyclable plastics and tins from their home. They are going to use that to develop an artwork that we are going to pick a winner at the end of the month. So the duration is just for a month, 4 weeks, and they are going to do an artwork. And we just want to sort of help promote, recycling, encourage people, both young and old, to be conscious of our planet that God has created for humans to live and look after. So, yeah, that's our initiative.
Yeah, and what skills did you guys as a team apply?
As a team, we one of the skills that was really key in us developing this was our creative skills, creative thinking skills, because we are an independent consultancy company and we've been contracted by the council. So when they when they give you a task, our planet is dying, fix it. You need to come up with solutions, especially when it comes to working with young children. Why am I going around gathering bottles? To engage them, you need to be creative. Another thing is communication skills, because it's communication skills and thinking outside the box. So you're going to a school, these children have been stressed all day. They've listened to maths, English, French, and whatnot, and strangers are in their school talking on about how they should save a planet that they probably, well, don't really know much about. So you need to be able to communicate the urgency with them and think outside the box because you're working with children. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And so moving on. Sorry, yeah, a round of applause. And now moving on, please can you go to the slide before? I would just like you guys to individually reflect if these skills as listed on here, so research and planning, team collaboration, problem solving and creativity, time management and organization, adaptability, resilience, presentation and communication, if all of these skills were applied when performing and partaking in this exercise. Okay. So now in terms of developing transferable skills, obviously you had this initiative. First of all, there would be the pulling of ideas before getting into planning. I'm sure you guys had your space to bring forward ideas, measure them, would this be good enough or not? How much would be needed? What time will it take? And also in terms of presenting, can this be planned in 10 minutes? So in terms of developing transferable skills, I will just bring it back to myself and give you guys like a short story on how I grew to develop the skills that made me eventually get the current job that I do. So like I said before, I am a mechanical engineer with a master's in mechanical engineering. And apart from that, in uni, I was part of a lot of clubs. So I was a global student ambassador. I was the engineering student ambassador. I was also in my second year secretary and treasurer of a Christian society, and eventually in my third year, the vice president. These skills, these activities that I decided to engage in all buffered and strengthened the skills that I had. I found out that in meetings, I would have to communicate. I would have to lead people, lead my team, part of the exec team, and also equipped them to leading the members of the society, and we were a large society as well. And during my master's and my third year of engineering, in the way my uni did it, which was so good, was that we would have lots of projects, and also in where we would work with an outside company. In my third year, I worked with Advanced SLS in London, and my fourth year, during my master's, I worked with Siemens to develop and come up with a solution, design. And with all of those, we were not just expected to be engineers, but we were expected to think outside the box. So as an engineer, what they would say is, and for everyone, you would not just find yourself in an organization. There would be cross-functional teams, there would be interdisciplinary and people from various disciplines. And you would need to learn how to work with them and work with them, communicate with them, because you would be competent, I would say, in your field, but you would need to learn how to communicate that in simple terms to someone who would be from a different career background. And during like my third and fourth year, all of that was buttressed to us, that when we would be given projects, we would be required to produce solutions that were effective and would be used, obviously, by these companies. However, we were also to manage them, making business cases, making plans, having a team lead, a liaison, someone who will communicate regularly to whoever it is from the company. Apart from that, also making a draft, a plan, a presentation, specifications for when whatever we design will be built eventually. And that helped me grow as a person, but also with my skills. To be a part of from my first year. I absolutely hated electrical and anything that had to do with that, because in your first year you do like a general engineering type thing. But in my fourth year I was like, why not? And this was a project that was beyond my uni. We were part of the Formula student team, which is the IMechE board, Institution of Mechanical Engineers. And that is something that I believe over 50 schools and a few schools from Germany and Ireland were a part of. And during the summer, we would come together and we would have dynamic and other events with proper scrutiny on what we had done so far. This was a very intense year where we had to plan. We had 19 people. We had to have various roles for everyone, both technical and non-technical. I was a project and production manager, as well as being in the moto team. With all of those, we were to come up with a plan, learn to work together, very different sets of people. We were under pressure because that was a major project, but it wasn't the only thing. We were also coming to school to learn. We had many minor projects along that. And we just had to make it work. It was different. In your first year, you for engineers, you do a design and it could work, it could not work. In your third year, you are expected to produce results. In your fourth year, you are expected to produce results. You are expected to know how to communicate these results. You are expected to think about the production, as far as the clients and the consumers and customers. Sorry? Stakeholders. Adapt using systems thinking to come up with loads of solutions, and then using same systems thinking to do find out what the best solution would be out of all of those. And going through all of that, I mean, I tell you, it was a hellish year, but it was the best thing I had done for myself. Pushing myself and stretching myself to as much as I could take, just so I would be able to be competent in many disciplines. Now, I also wanted to use this opportunity because there are a few people who go to unis. Do not be hesitant to do more. Don't be hesitant to try something else. Don't be hesitant to put yourself out there. Many people would not actually believe me, but I am such an introvert. And everyone I tell will argue that with me, that I am not, but I am such an introvert. However, even being an introvert, I have found myself in many positions of leadership, many positions of leading creativity and producing results that have had me to go constantly out of my place of comfort and do more, expecting more for myself. Now, when I began applying for jobs, when COVID started, I wanted to do like a year in industry, and that was when I found out about the job application process. And it is long. It is so long. You would start off with getting your CV, and then them ascertaining whether you need a visa to actually get that year off, because you would, if you don't start off with a visa intended for a year off, a year in industry, you would have to change your visa. Not every company sponsors that visa. And then after going through that, you would have to write a psychometric test. And if you know what a psychometric test does to you, one company's psychometric test is like 2 hours. So imagine applying to like 10, 20 jobs. I got to know that, and in my 3rd year, going into my 4th year, I started applying early, and I started practicing just to improve and perfect my competencies. And it was long. It was hard. It was difficult. Rejections upon rejections. And then the worst part is scaling it and getting so close, but just not getting the job. It was so frustrating. However, with the questions that they asked, I had enough experience to be able to come up with examples and deliver concrete evidence of how I was competent enough because of all of these experiences I had. Going into this sector that I am in now, which is a utility sector, yes, I am technically competent to a degree, and yes, I am non-technically competent. However, that was a company I had no idea of up until a week before, because I got my job. I did my interview the week before and got the job the week before I actually started. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about water. I knew nothing about wastewater. I knew absolutely nothing. However, the skills that I had developed equipped me to be a sponge, to learn, to adapt. And that's what all of these are. So now moving into how to develop skills, there were a few things that I came up with. And a list. So professional development and courses, you have Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, Google also does courses for personal development. Coursera, all of those. And yeah, on the job training, there are certain things that you would never learn until you actually do it. Being an engineer, like, I would say my first to half of my 3rd year was jokes. Until I actually started the projects, that was when I knew that I had to apply everything that I learned from my first to my 3rd and my 2nd and a half year. It was just jokes. But once we started having to produce results, then we started having to engage and remember and apply everything that we had learned. So on the job training, don't be afraid to take on projects. Don't be afraid to be a part of, I know some unis, they have other initiatives that you could join. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to fail. Try on something, and that helps you. That if you don't succeed, at least you know what you can't do, and you get to know yourself even more. The third one is cross-functional collaboration. That's also in line with, joining initiatives and clubs. Get to learn more about people, get to know how to work with people. You will at your place of work, even in school. Well, definitely at your place of work with people that you have never conceived to know exist. Different kinds of people. You would need to learn how to work with them. You need to learn how to communicate effectively with them. Because communication is not just what you say, it's also the writing, it's also in the things not said, it's in the way, it's in your body language. So you would need to learn how to communicate with them. You would need to learn how to have difficult conversations. You would need to learn how to defend the things that you believe in. You need to learn how to defend your ideas and why that should be what the team should go with. And then the next one is seeking feedback. For the people who are soft-hearted, this would be a lot. But you have to train yourself to learn to receive feedback. It's so important, not just to know yourself, but to know what others perceive of you, because you are not really having an out-of-body experience all the time. You're not, sometimes, it's one thing to be self-aware, but certain things that you can't see. And that's why your friends, the people you work with, your teachers, your lecturers, your managers, have conversations with them. Let them give you feedback on what you have done so far, on even your plans. Tell them about your plans, and they can ascertain. Now, you wouldn't bank only on that, but you would know what skills to improve on, the parts of yourself that you need to, work on, and the parts, your strengths, the things that you excel in, the things that don't even drain you, but you do well. Seek feedback, volunteer, try new things, network, speak to people, get to know them. Honestly, most of the conversation, I've told my sister this, but something that I have tried to take on forward is speaking to people around me. I would have a conversation with absolutely anyone. On the train, on the bus, anyone at all, I would have a conversation with you. I will get to know you. I will ask you questions. I will talk about myself, but I will ask more questions. Just get to know people. Talk about the things. Talk about their interests with them. Talk about your interests with them. That would open doors. That would open a different perspective. Continuing education, learning never stops. So just don't stop learning. It's not bad to start from the ground up. For me, going into electrical engineering in my 4th year, when I knew that it was something I had hated for a long time, was so daunting, because I did not only was I supposed to have background knowledge, I was working on a product that needed results, that had to work. Like, we were building a car, being part of the electrical team, that car had to run. It had to turn on, and I knew absolutely nothing at the start. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to start from the beginning. Don't be afraid to just not say, I don't know. Don't be afraid to fail and try again. Continue your education. Do your side project. Have side projects going on. They don't have to be academic. They don't have to be that serious, but something that you can commit to up until the end. Join professional associations. I know for engineers, you get to join the IMECI or the IChemI or IET. For project managers, it's Association of Project Management. There are different bodies, related to what you would want to do. Join them. For students, it's free, so you can become an associate member. And reflect and adapt. So top how I have like top tips on like how to develop your skills. Like make it a goal to build your confidence. You could be so talented and so competent, but people would not be able to see that because you aren't confident. So make it a personal goal to grow your confidence. You don't have to be loud about it if you don't want to, but be confident. Know how to advertise yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the point you made previously about joining membership. In my organisation, my current organisation, I'm the representative for the Association of Project Management, so I liaise internally with the external body. And I'm currently pushing and encouraging, colleagues to actually join the membership because it's so key. They have all these events that you can network with people outside your organisation that would actually be so beneficial for your growth and for your learning. There might be things that you're unable to do, and someone in your organisation, you probably don't feel comfortable to ask them that. Someone that you've met in one of these conferences would be able to help with. I mean, someone I met 8 years ago helped me on a project this year recently, and that's because we touch base, we've got them on LinkedIn, so it really helps building networking and getting to know people within your field that work outside of your organisation. And also touching on back on the seeking feedback, I think Dee mentioned feedback is very important. It can be very daunting because when someone tells you, you really want honest feedback, and they give you honest feedback, it can be a true test of character because you start to question your ability, you start to question your competence, but it really shouldn't be seen like that. I think when you start to see feedback as a way of improving yourself and bettering yourself, no one's perfect, no one knows it all, and even if you think you know it all, you clearly don't know it all because there's always something to learn, whether it's in your field, whether it's, day-to-day life, there's always something to learn. So taking on that feedback is really, really key in terms of developing yourself, really seeking that feedback, asking people to give you feedback after, a work is complete or a project has been closed out, get some feedback. And to be honest, those feedback actually help your growth in the company when you want to negotiate your salary. So,
Yeah. So following up from that, make plans and stick to them. Start small if you know you're not disciplined. Start small, make a plan, stick to it, deliver. And then learn to communicate effectively. Now that's tricky. But there was something a friend told me when I was running my society. And she was like, learn to err on the side of over communication. People come from different backgrounds. So sometimes you could say something so simple and it should be so simple. But then there are many, many, many ways to interpret it. So learn to communicate, but learn to communicate effectively. And also I have like the resources available that you could use to learn. For students, the University Career Hub can be so helpful. They'll help you with creating your CVs, and they can also help you with carrying out mock interviews. So going on from that, I would like to welcome Sister Nike to talk about navigating job search.
they would say that CV would not be scored. So I said, and some jobs would say CV will be scored. So I'm like, okay, because I was doing something different, I want to go into something new, I will only focus on the jobs that are saying CV will not be scored. If I'm applying for the ones that CV will be scored, they'll probably sift me out. If they have like 10 people that already have like their CVs very well, like they have the same 10 years experience in project management compared to myself, that I'm only probably just tailoring my CV to match the project's job. So I focused on jobs that were not looking for, that were saying CV would not be scored, which means they're not going to look at only going to check my CV for information purpose, but they will not score it. And then the next one, the other one said, I think, qualification. So I didn't look at the jobs that wanted me to have the project qualification as well. So something good I like about the UK Civil Service is some jobs would not necessarily require you to have the qualification, but they will say you should desire to have the qualification. And that was why I didn't focus on private. I know a lot of privates would say you must have the qualification. So for some people that probably want to work in private, you might want to decide, okay, let me go and use my money to do my exam so that it can give me an edge to actually apply for that job I want. And some people like me that at that time, I didn't have the money to actually do that exam at that time. I thought, okay, well, good for me. I have jobs that would say CV would not be scored, and then some jobs that would say that I don't necessarily have to have the project qualification. They would pay for the exam when I get the job. So I said, okay, I'm on the right track. Let's do this. So I started looking for those jobs, started applying, and tailored my CV, which is one thing you should do. And something I want to say today is, a lot of people would say, okay, let's say an event planner, for example. They want to be a project manager, like, oh, I don't want to lie on my CV. That's maybe when you want to write your employment history, and maybe you work in, let's say, the church, for example. You now say, maybe you work in the church as an event planner, and then you want to tailor your CV, you want to apply for a project manager role, you now say project manager in the church. You've not lied, and I will tell you why. Because being an event planner and being a project manager, they do the same duties, they have the same responsibilities, and what you need to do as someone who is trying to probably transition like myself at that time was, you can actually change your job title to match what you're applying for, as long as the duties you were doing in those roles were similar. And those were the things I did for myself. Good thing that some of the jobs were not saying that the CV will not be scored, but at the same time, I made sure that in the title, so some jobs I couldn't change the title because I was already in the civil service. So if I probably change it to something else, I didn't want anything to implicate me. So what I did was, in the CV part, I just made sure that in the CV, I made sure that the duties, they were aligning with the duties of a project manager. So I think about my job, okay, we deal with customers. Rather than use the word customers, I would say liaising with stakeholders. So I started speaking in the language of a project person. So customers, clients, stakeholder, they are the same thing. But you don't want to start using the language of a customer advisor that you were or that you are. So you want to start speaking in the language of that role you are going into. So rather than use the word customers, you want to say stakeholders. So those were the things I was making sure I was doing. In my duties, I would say things that, I'm not lying, it's still the same skill, but I'm speaking in that language. And I felt like they kind of helped me. And in terms of tailoring my application. Talking about networking, when I started applying for a job, or when I knew I wanted to move, it was very difficult because I thought I was doing the right thing, but somehow I wasn't just getting an interview. I'm like, what's going on? But I didn't realize, and how did I help myself get through that part? It was attending events, and I'm someone that I always put myself out there. Like, even when I was in uni in school, I do a lot of like volunteering, and the only reason I do it is because I know that when it comes to applying for a job or trying to do something and they want experience, you always need it, and that is one thing I would encourage you to do. Put yourself out there. In the previous team I used to work for, I know my colleagues will always look at me like, why is this girl always doing everything? This Nikki, everything. Once they say, who wants to mentor people, who wants to do this, they're always like, this girl's always doing everything. But I didn't care, I knew what I wanted. There was a time they said, oh, we have new starters. We're looking for people who to mentor them. I'm like, okay, I told my manager I would do it. And I did it. I was the only one. My team members were like, oh, Nike, what are they doing? What's it all about? I'm like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. This is what you need to do. Now, that mentoring I did, it was just for a day. But if I go for an interview, I could actually use that example that I did leadership. I was in a leadership position. So doing all those things, I knew the reasons why I was doing them, because when I do them, it gives me something to be able to say when I go for an interview or something. And it doesn't, when you're in the interview, you don't necessarily have to say, give examples of only jobs you've done. You could give example of something you've just done in a day or whatever. So in terms of networking, you need to like meet people. And some of the things I did in my job, when I wanted to start applying for project job, I would just go on my laptop. I don't know them. I would just type projects, and it would give me the list of everybody working in projects, and I would just speak to them, introduce them that my name is Nike. I want to transition into project. I'm in operational delivery. And then they were like, some people even tell me, Nike, why did you message them? You have the guts to message them. How? But I'm like, I just feel like the worst I can get is a no. But at least it's always good to ask. And it actually helped me, because when I did that, I met a few persons. Someone I met was a project person. And she said to me, oh, Nike, don't worry. I'm going to introduce you to someone. She's in service modernization. She's going to see if there's an EOI, and she's actually going to get you a job in projects. I'm like, okay, how is she going to get me there? And she did. Like, she didn't. So by the time she introduced me to that person, I'd already gotten a job. But so the person actually reached out to me and said, oh, this person said you wanted a job in project. Okay, I'm looking at something for you now. And I had to like come out to her and say, I already got a job in project. But if I had not gotten a job then, I'm sure that she would probably have something for me. And that's how I just land the job. So it's very good to network and meet people. Another thing about networking is some of the people I reached out to about, oh, I wanted a job, blah, blah, blah. The person sent an application to me and said, oh, Nike, I've just found this job. So when you network, you meet people and they tell you, like, when there's like an opportunity, they come to you and say, oh, can you apply for this? But if you just keep to yourself, you don't want to mix with people, you don't want to network, you're not going to get anything. But networking actually really helps. It's a strategy you can use, meeting people. The person sent me the job advert and said, oh, Nike, can you apply for this job? And I said, okay, I'll apply. I applied for the job and I actually got the job, but I didn't eventually go for it. But how did I actually know about the job? Because I networked with the person. The other one is job boards and websites, which is very good. Some people will say, oh, I'm not getting job. I don't know where to find job. There are jobs. You just need to know where and the right place to find the job. So you want to look for, whether you're looking for a civil service job, you want to make sure you're checking on civil service website. You want to get a job with an agency. You want to be conversant with agencies in your area. You don't even have to wait for agencies to call you. You ring them. I remember days where I would ring the agency and say, I'm interested in job. Like, I was literally chasing an agency till they gave me the job. But eventually, I couldn't do the job because they said, oh, it's an home office job, but you've not spent 3 years. Sorry, blah, blah, blah. But yes, you have to look. You need to look for where are the places, like, where are these job boards and websites that I can get this job. You need to be sure that you're looking at the right place. Then the last one is professional development. I'll use this myself as an example as well. When I wanted to go into projects, or when I wanted to transition into projects, I knew I didn't have the money to write the exam at that time. And all the jobs I was seeing was like, okay, not necessarily have a project delivery qualification, but a desirable criteria, you must be willing to write the exam. One of the things I did was, okay, professional development. I started reading online, like Dee said, going on Coursera and all of that. Another thing I did was I went to APM. I just registered as a member. And in my personal statement and stuff, I'll put there that I am a member of APM, Association for Project Managers, where I network with project delivery professionals. So even though I didn't pay for the registration, I just joined because I felt like, okay, maybe if I say that in my personal statement, it would kind of give them like, oh, okay, this girl she's a member. And I also say something like, I have scheduled my exam, because one thing I said to myself is, even if I don't get a job, I'll make sure I write this exam by 2024. So I always say that I don't have my qualification now, but I've scheduled it for 2024. I don't put the month or whatever. So when they see all of those, they're like, oh, this person is serious. So those are the strategies. quickly go to the CV writing tips. Talking about CV, there are lots of templates that you can, that are online, wherever for the CV. But I'm just going to talk about like the key things that you really need to put in your CV when you're writing them. So like I'm not probably teaching a template now. I'm just talking about the key things you need to put. For private jobs, CV is like very important. They tell you send your CV. Some people even use a particular system to sift people out. Once they see that, oh, your CV is not matching, they just take it away. So how do you need to ensure that your CV is landing you that particular job that you want? One of the things you want to do is you want to include a profile summary that describes yourself in relation to the job description. When I was applying for a job, I would normally say like, so for a CV, you want to have like a job profile, like that describe yourself, like summarizes your person. And my advice is do that summary in relation to that job you're applying for. I would normally say something like, I'm a project delivery professional with the experience of managing projects to ensure they are delivered within the agreed time scale and quality constraints. So when I'm doing that part, I want to make sure it's aligning with their job description. That's one thing you should do. You want to make sure it's aligned so that whoever is reading your CV, when they see that first, they want to continue reading. They want to make sure, oh, let me continue reading. Because the moment they read the first paragraph and it doesn't make sense, they are not interested again. Then I also wrote here that make sure you draw out your skill in relation to the experience in the advert. One thing I will also say is in the adverts, they will normally write skills and experience. So if you've seen in the advert that they say they want someone with communication skill, whatever skill they've written, make sure that when they've provided in your CV, you're also putting those skills. You're not copying it word for word, but you're making sure that those skills are included as well, so that whatever they are using to sift, you are going to proceed to the next stage. Then the other one is include responsibilities and achievements in the work history. So when you are in your work history or employment history part, you don't just want to write the name of the company and the date and just leave it. You want to write the duties. What did you do in that company? And that was what I was talking about, where I said liaising with stakeholders. Even though I was dealing with, we don't call them stakeholders where I was working, we call them customers. But I was going into a job that they normally use the terminology stakeholder. So rather than use the word customer, I was using stakeholder, speaking in the language. It doesn't mean I was lying, but I was just making sure that it is in line with what I was applying for. So you want to do something like that as well. And including your duties, you want to write like 4 things you were doing in that role. And then the, what's it called, achievement. Achievement does not necessarily mean something that they probably called you out and presented you an award. I'll give an example. I remember a time I was having a one-to-one with my manager when I was working in HMRC. And my manager said, oh, Nike, you were the one that had the highest target, whatever, in this month in the team. That was an achievement for me, and in my CV, I would normally put there, recognized as the most blah, 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 blah in the region. I didn't put that it was just that week they recognized me. I just put it there that, that I was recognized. Nobody asked me, it 1 year they recognized or whatever, where you presented an award, but make sure you put the achievements. Then focus on your experience from the last 5 years. You can go beyond if other years are related. So you don't want to be talking about the days you were a teacher in 2020 something, except if you are still applying for a teacher role and it's still relevant to that thing you're applying for. But what you're applying for, if it's not relevant, you don't need to go as far back as 19 whatever. So just make sure you stay within 5 years, except if they are related. I'll quickly go to personal statement writing tips. For this one, I said start with a strong pitch on why you are suitable for the role. And that's similar to the job profile I was talking about. You want to start with something that's, so when you're writing your personal statement, some people call it cover letter as well. For the personal statements, you want to make sure that, so for example, I'll quickly do, like, so if they ask you to write 1,000 words, you want to give the first paragraph 50 words, the last paragraph 50 words, and the remaining word counts that you have, you divide it by the number of essential criteria. I'll repeat what I've said. So if they said the essential criteria for this job is, there are 5 essential criteria. This person must have organizational skill. This person must have, if it's 5, and they've asked you to write 1,000 words for your personal statement, what you want to do is, first paragraph, give it 50 words. Last paragraph, give it 50 words. And then the remaining, so maybe the essential criteria is 5. the remaining word count you have, divide it by the 5, and whatever you have, each essential criteria, you write that word count on it. Now, if they ask you to write a 750 word, you don't want to write 600, you don't want to write 500, because that means you're writing lower, and you don't want to write more than 750. I would say that if they ask you to write 750, don't write less than 700. And for each essential criteria, you don't necessarily have to write exactly the word count you've divided. Some you might have to write 100, and some you might have to write less than, but at the end of the day, is to make sure that you use your word count. And you also make sure that, like I said, the first paragraph is you giving them a description about yourself, giving them a reason why they should continue to read the application, because the moment they start reading your personal statement and it's not making sense, they might sift you out. In the body of the statement, when you are describing yourself, use the STAR method to give examples of and evidences against the essential criteria. And at the last paragraph, finish with a short reminder on why you are suitable for this role. So one thing people used to say is sometimes people might not remember everything you said, but they remember what you started with and the last thing you said. So the person that has read your statement at the beginning and saw that, this thing makes sense, let me continue reading. They might not remember everything they've read in the middle, but when they come to the last paragraph, probably you said something like, I'm really excited for this opportunity and where I can implement my so skills to ensure that the team I am stays successful, and I will welcome any challenge this role may offer. They kind of like have this, so you are giving them a reason why they should give you the job. You are convincing them, you are re-emphasizing, reiterating everything you've said before. So that's how you can actually make your personal statement be a win to proceed to the next stage. And once your CV is good, once your personal statement is good, they want to call you for interview. What do you do at the interview? I used to say that once they've called you for an interview, you're like already one leg in, and you want to make sure they call you. And some of the things I do in my interview, what I feel like can be helpful, is researching about the post. You want to ask why, they might ask you, why did you apply for this role? You don't want to say something out of context or that doesn't make sense, because that will give them another impression about you. You want to make sure that you're saying something that makes sense, and when they ask you about the job, you know what you're saying. Dress smartly. If it's a face-to-face interview, you want to dress smartly. You don't just want to wear whatever. You don't necessarily have to dress and wear suit, but at least dress smartly. And even if it's a virtual interview, you don't want to wear pajamas to the virtual interview. You want to still dress smartly, even if it's virtual. Then, if it's face-to-face, give it plenty of time to arrive there. Be friendly and never be too over-familiar. One thing I do when I'm in an interview, first thing I'm doing is I'm smiling, like not sheepishly, but I'm having that smiling face. You want to be welcoming. You don't want them to see, because someone said to me that when she's interviewing people, she already forms an impression about them the moment she already knows whether she wants to have them in her team or not. So you want to give them that first impression. You want to have a smiley face and that composure. Then listen carefully to questions. I think this is the part that people fail the most, and has happened to me. They ask you a question, but maybe you've prepared an answer, and then what they're asking you is different, and you're trying to switch it for it, and then you totally forget the question they've asked you, and then you go another direction, and you've actually not answered the question. So I would say that one thing I would say is sometimes what I started doing at some point is I'll write down the question. As they're asking me, I'm writing the question. At that moment I'm writing the question, I'm already thinking, Nike, which answer do you want to say? Like, you're already using that time to think. Sometimes I'll even use time and say, could you repeat the question? Just because I've not boots and I'm still thinking about I'm still thinking about the answer. So that's one thing you want to do as well. And I didn't know this before until later. I'm this person that I used to feel like, I can cram anything once I put it on my head. But later, when I was applying for a job, I'm not going to lie, I started applying like in June, and as at, I think, October, I hadn't gotten a job. Some of them were putting me on reserve list. I was like mentally stressed, and I was like, I couldn't, me that would go to the interview before and I won't take notes. At some point, I was reading and nothing was staying in my head again. So I now realized you could actually take your notes. So if you feel like you need to take your notes, you can take it. You're not reading from the note. You only just need to prompt yourself. If you're not sure, you can ask the interviewer, can I have my notes? Some even say you can bring your notes. It was then I realized you can actually bring your notes. So sometimes you're saying something and you just forget. You want to prompt yourself and you just quickly look, nobody's going to say, oh, why did you look into your note, as long as you're not reading. Then when you're answering your questions, you use STAR method. Like, I cannot emphasize this enough. Sometimes you're using STAR method, but you're still not getting the job. Why? Because you actually need to learn how to structure your answers correctly. So what was the situation? What was the task? What was the action you took, and what was the result? Focus more on the action than the situation. You don't want to be saying what the situation, like focusing too much on the situation rather than the action. And the result is really important. Also, make natural eye contact. They are asking you a question, you don't want to be looking elsewhere. You want to look at them on the face. Focus on the question, like I have already said this before, and use I not we. This is another mistake as well. When they're asking you questions in the interview, you don't want to be saying we did this, because it's about you, not about your team that you were or that you are. So you want to focus more on yourself. Answer your questions using STAR. I've said this. Always ask questions after interview. Like this one, I cannot overemphasize this enough, and I feel like it has really helped me. The interviews I had, so after my whole interview, whatever, I realized that everything was a learning curve for me. I wasn't doing some things correctly, and for every interview was a learning curve. I was learning, I was improving, and it got to a point where I now had several offers that I didn't even know the one to choose from. Now, and I realized that those jobs that I had several offers, or I started in June, I think from August and all of that, I used to ask questions in the interview. And when I asked some questions, the interviewers would be like, wow, that's interesting. Oh, we're not expecting this question. And what are the kind of questions I sometimes ask? I want to ask questions like, oh, what's the most challenging project you've ever worked on? And how did you overcome it? Or how did you solve it? They're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that question. Okay, the answer is, I ask questions like, okay, I could say something like, I'm someone who loves to learn and grow, who loves to learn. Can you tell me how the team learns and grow together? Now there you're making them see that, oh, you're this kind of person that you're not just about, you also want to learn, you want to improve your skills. So you're asking them questions like that. And also sometimes you want to ask questions like, some people might not answer, but it's a great opportunity for you as well. So you want to ask questions like, is there any particular skill that you're looking for in someone for this role that you feel I haven't mentioned or talked about? So the reason why you're asking that question is, if there's anything you feel you've not talked about, the person might be able to say, oh yeah, you've talked about everything. I just feel like you've not touched on negotiation skills or something. You can use the opportunity to then talk about what you've missed out, which I have done before. I was in an interview and the person said to me, oh, I think you've answered everything, but you've just not touched about this. And I said, oh, yes. And I said to the person, okay, I started talking about that thing they said I haven't talked about. If I didn't ask that question, I would not talk about it at the end, and it might not get me the job. So you want to give an avenue for them to talk about things that you have not talked about. Don't feel rushed. Speak slower than you normally do. Yes, this is really important. When you're doing your interview, don't speak, if you're a fast talker, don't speak too fast, speak slower than you normally do so that they can hear your words clearly, and bring in your emotional aspect. This I do a lot. I remember an interview I did, and it was an internal interview, and the person was saying, Bonike, you don't have a project experience. So where is your experience coming from? What do you want to do? Why do you want us to take you for this job? I know that question, and for anybody transitioning, I feel like that's the part of transitioning that people don't talk about. People talk about how, oh, you can get tech job, you can move, but they don't talk about the challenges or questions that may arise, like, where's your experience coming from? And I said to the person, I said, true, I don't have a current 9 to 5 where I'm a project delivery professional, but I've always put myself out there. I'm currently volunteering for blah, blah, blah. Because of my passion for project management, I had to join the association. And when I was saying this, I wasn't just saying it, I was talking with, so when I'm doing my interview, I speak in a particular tone that can be quite emotional, not like I'm crying, but I'm gesticulating. You are seeing that passion in me, like you can see it in my eyes. And I think the next day, the person called me back, and she said, the one thing she said, even though you didn't have as much experience as people who applied for this role, I could see the passion in you, and that's why I'm offering you the job. So you want to bring in your emotional aspect, not like you're crying the head joy. And I think that's just basically it. Like interviews are, once you get your CV, personal statements, and you can ace your interview. And of course, you don't want to forget about the God factor as well. Like you want to pray, well, and even if things are not looking like, sometimes when things are, you're not getting the job or you're being put on reserve, look at the feedback. What feedback did you get? Did they say, what did they say happened? What have you know? Then I've done interview that they say, oh, presentation was good. Nika did not look at her notes. We were amazed that she said everything off her head, but she didn't answer the strength question very well. What did I do? I looked for people that can tell me how to answer strength questions very well. And the moment I was able to get the strategy to answer strength questions, I was applying it and I realized that my strengths, the answers I was getting for strength questions were becoming higher. So you want to work on your feedback. So my conclusion is mastering effective job search strategy is vital for success. As long as you can, you don't just want to be doing, sometimes when you're applying for a job and everything is not working, you don't want to be doing the same thing at the same time. You want to work on what's not going well, how can I do to improve myself? You want to go for learnings, even if it's boot camp, apprenticeship, or what have you, any opportunity that come. Or you even want to speak to people who are who are professionals in that area. You want them to mentor you or give you tips that they might have to share. And by doing all of this, I believe that everything will be fine. So if does anyone have questions, if there are no questions, thank you for listening.
Thank you to all our wonderful speakers. Can we just give them a round of applause, please? So we've come to we're just about towards the end of the event. But I want to we're going to have a Q&A session, but also we're going to be having lunch as well, just because of time. But I'd like to also say that, just say thank you to everybody for coming, taking your time to attend. I hope it was worthwhile. For those online also, a very big thank you. Unfortunately, you can't have for those online, you can't have the lunch with us, but it's one of them things. Going forward, we're going to have, like I said, this is the first one we're having as a church. And like I said, it's part of the vision of the church to not just teach the word of God, but also improve ourselves, help ourselves to network together to better ourselves professionally and in any which way we can. So we will be having another one, but this time around it will be regarding finances. So it will be a good one. I can assure you it will be a good one. We're going to be talking about things about how to get a mortgage, what's a debt, a good debt, a bad debt, things like that. Credit cards versus loans, things like that. And we're going to be looking into things that are practical for us as individuals. So I'm looking forward to that. We will send out the invites out when we get the dates right. I was going to say praise God. It's part of you. You can't just... Okay, so have we had a good time today? Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to have the Q&A. So if you've got any questions in any field at all whatsoever,